The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
The METUS Tech Show.
So, Clifton, welcome to the show. And we've been talking about this river rat thing. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please? I'm intrigued.
Absolutely. Well, I know you guys like to start talking about food. And so one of my favorites is actually a little unknown variety of meats that come from the snapping turtle. So here in the Midwest, we have some very large snapping turtle. We'll get 30 or 40 pound snappers.
Wow.
And so I grew up on the Wabash River in all of the backwoods. Like I basically lived out on the river and in creeks and streams, and so hunting and fishing was just what we did. But my dad is like from the old school side of our family that was very much into snapping turtle hunting. So we would actually go through like creeks and streams and drainage ditches with a broom handle down the middle of it, thumping, looking for a snapper shell. And once you found a snapper, you got your hand down and you actually felt the ridges on their back to know which way your hand didn't want to go.
Yeah, here they can bite really hard.
Oh yeah, they can take off fingers for sure. Yeah, they're worse than muskrats. So inside of a snapping turtle, there's actually like 7 different types of meat. So depending on what you like, if you like steak, there's steak. If you like pork, there's pork. If you like chicken, there's chicken. So there's a variety of different types of meat within a snapping turtle. So that is one of my favorites. And I think it's an odd one. It's unusual, and it's definitely not known by everybody, but it's very, very good eating.
So when you catch it, how do you dress it? How does that process work?
How deep do we want to get here?
Not too deep.
So the best way, honestly, once they're dead, is you actually use a garden hose and you inflate them with a garden hose. And so when you inflate with a garden hose, so through the mouth, close and seal the mouth with channel locks or clamp, and you inflate with water. And so when you inflate with water, you actually separate the meat from the shell. And so then you can, once you open the shell, then your meat is actually separated, and it's very easy to get to. So it's a relatively easy cleaning process if you go that way. If you just start with cutting, it's a lot of work.
This may be
that's the old school way.
This may be the most interesting, odd, and disturbing food we've ever talked about at the same time.
So do you deep fry it? Do you bake it?
Yeah, so typically you're going to pan fry in oil. You just floured in oil in a skillet, iron skillet preferably. But you can make soup out of it. You can make stew. There's a variety of different recipes, pot pie. So if you get online and you look for like different types of turtle recipes, you'll find that here in the Midwest, that's kind of that's one of the old school hunting techniques, and that comes from basically comes from the Depression era, when, like all of my family we were all workers, like no one ever went to college in my family. Everyone was just, you're a laborer. And so we were kind of the poor, but we ate well and we didn't mind hunting for food. So turtle is just one of those things where, especially in the spring here, like right now is actually turtle crossing season where the turtles are crossing the roads, looking for new ponds, looking for new mates. And so you'll see 15, 20 pound snapping turtles crossing the road. So where most people would swerve around them, we were the ones in the pickup truck that would stop by and grab the tail and throw them in the back of the truck and take them home.
Okay.
So the tie into river rats, is that just the slang term for a snapping turtle?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so people grew up on the river, typically called river rats. And so that's kind of who we were. And we lived in the river bottoms. I mean, we could literally go camping. Like my summers, as soon as we got out of school, we were headed to the cabin. And then we would stay until like a week before it's time to go back to school. And so most people didn't even see us. I mean, we like went to the river and people didn't know what we did because we went to the river, we went to the campground, and then we came back right before school. And so it was like that mystery, what do they do up there? And so we did a lot of fishing, we did a lot of hunting, and we worked on our own stuff, our own boats, vehicles. So that's kind of where I grew up working on things, is that just naturally you had to work on stuff.
So I've never had turtle. So is the meat tough? Is it tender?
It depends on what you're looking for, because like the neck straps, because they have these like crazy long, strong necks that have these white straps in them that are very much like, almost like, I would almost say like a turkey thigh. So it's a really good white meat. But then there's also like in the legs is really strong, dense meat like pork. So it's more like a rump roast. And so you get all these different strands. So you get long grain meat, you get, clump strong meat. There's like I said, there's 7 different types of meat within inside of a turtle.
I would give anything to just be able to see the faces of the people driving and listening to this right now. I really wish that we could just see their faces when they're hearing this. It goes, what? And then again, there are probably some people. You're not the only river rat that's in the HVAC business. So there's probably some people saying, yeah.
And that's why I can relate to it. Because back in my West Virginia days, we used to have an annual event called the Roadkill event.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Where we would have possum and turtle and you name it.
We ate everything. And so, like all my friends growing up, they actually enjoyed it because they'd come to our house and you wouldn't know what you were eating. Like you never knew. And so that was kind of the fun of going over to the Beck's houses.
Don't ask what it is. Just eat it.
You don't ask. Just try it.
Just eat it.
I've had turtle soup. It's pretty good. Actually, it was very flavorful. Yeah. That's good. So anyway, welcome everybody to the METUS Tech Show. My name is Paul Chavs. Joining me in studio is Bryn Raptor. Bryn, say hello.
Hello.
Joining us remotely is Juan Cardona. Juan, you haven't been on in a while. Hey, say hi.
Hola.
All right. And we have a very special guest, Clifton Beck from ESCO. Clifton, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So let's start off, Clifton. Let's tell us a little bit about yourself, like you personally, your background in the trade and so on, and then a little bit about ESCO.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually started my life in TV, radio, film. So I had a mobile DJ business as a teenager. Went to college for TV, radio, film, realized that, you only made good money if you're like the top 1% of all students. And so I got into the trades. And so my brother was working at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, and I got a job there over a summer vacation as an operator, learning plumbing and electrical, and got into the mechanical side. And then it just kind of evolved. And then I started in a small family-owned refrigeration business. So they did refrigeration and HVAC. And so my career really started in refrigeration. So I spent about 20 years out in the field. Ended up as a mobile engineer. So I did a lot of commercial building automations. Grocery refrigeration was really my key, and the automations that went along with that. So a lot of new store startups for grocery stores. Rack refrigeration was like really, that was my thing. But the technology was really what got me excited about the industry. And like I said, I guess this is around 18 years or so in, I had a recruiter reach out, want to know if I was interested in doing training in the industry. And I never really thought about myself as a trainer. I was a good service guy, and I loved service. And so, I was getting a little age, so the joints were starting to ache a little bit, and carrying all the tools to the roof.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't know what I mean, do you, Juan?
No.
Starting to go to the dermatologist, getting spots burned off my face every year from working on rooftops, pretty much all day long. And so I decided I would give it a try. So I went to work for a wholesaler, and I was teaching new technologies in residential. And so I was kind of relearning another side of my industry. I hadn't been in residential in over a decade, probably 15 years. And so when I seen what was happening in the residential sector with communicating systems and with inverter technology, I went, man, this is what I know. This is the things that I actually do. So it intrigued me. And so doing that, I needed to have resources. I didn't know how to teach. I didn't know what a classroom was. And that's when I was introduced to ESCO. And so ESCO, I now work for. I've had the privilege to join the company that give me my resources to become an educator. And so that's where I'm at now. So I'm kind of giving back in the resources that I was provided with.
Oh, very interesting. So I've been working with ESCO. So before I came to work for Mitsubishi, I was in the private trade school business. I was a director of a school. I was a supervisor of the HVAC department and an instructor. So I was dealing with ESCO way back when for different things. So tell us about ESCO. What does ESCO do, and how do you help contractors?
Yeah, absolutely. So ESCO was originally established as as an educational services company back in 1988 by Jerry Weiss, who's still the founder of ESCO. And at that time, he had a rep company, but he was doing training on the products that he was repping. And so it turned into the need for education. So it shifted real quick from doing primarily sales to doing primarily education. And so then it kind of ran with it. And then by the time the EPA 608 came along, that's really where we took our foundation. So by 1993, ESCO became one of the original founders of EPA 608 certifications. And so that really started the entire journey of, in student certifications, technician certifications, educator certifications. By 1996, it moved into a separate component of us, which is HVAC Excellence, which is our accreditation body that helps accredit programs, especially in our post-secondary and vocational schools. So we have a variety of small pieces of the ESCO group. So I actually work for the ESCO Institute, which is the curriculum side and the certification side. And so since 93, we've done about 2.3 million industry certifications, all the way from the heat assessments, which are basically the high school equivalency test. So you haven't really made it to the industry, but you're learning the principles. And are you retaining the knowledge that you're learning in classroom? And then you've got the work ready, which, okay, I've actually learned stuff. I've got some hands-on experience. I'm ready to go out into the industry. And then once you've been out in the industry for a couple of years, you can take professional level certifications. And then once you've been out there long enough, you could take advanced certifications, or you can take your certified subject matter educator credentials. So it's progressive levels of certification. That's really what we do at the heart. Is we do provide a variety of foundational curriculum, but it's more so about helping programs be successful, giving them the tools that they need. Because so many educators, just like we come out of the field and we go into a classroom, and Paul, you're just talking about being in the school. When you come from the field and you go into a classroom, that administration doesn't know you're not an educator.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. You walk in and they go, okay, we're grateful to have you here. Here's your keys. Here's your roster, and I'll see you at the Christmas party.
Yeah, that's it. They're the students. Go teach them something. Okay.
That's it. And so we focus on, well, what do you need? In this role, what do you need? And what industry partners do you need to connect to? Because you're going to need curriculum, you're going to need equipment, you're going to need funds for grants, you're going to need to be able to apply for different types of federal opportunities for your classroom, depending on what type of a school you are. How do you connect with the people? How do I talk to the OEMs? How do I learn new tools? And that's really what we spend most of our time doing. We're kind of like a professional dating service for the HVACR industry.
That's good. Very well put. So what types of certifications does ESCO provide?
Yeah, we've actually got about 100 different certifications. So the foundational part is those, I think there's 9 basics when you look at the heat. I can pull that up. So if you look at like the heat certifications, those are all your fundamentals, like electrical. That's all of your basic air conditioning, basic refrigeration, all of your principal mechanical skills, right? And then they can progress as they go. But then you get into some of the specialty ones like the A2L certifications, right? So when something new comes to the industry, we always make sure that we have training material available. Because if I'm an educator and I'm in a classroom and I haven't been out in the field in a few years and a new refrigerant comes to the industry, where do I begin? So
yeah,
like
exactly.
So like when R410 came out, remember what was the big scare of R410A?
Pressure.
Oh, high pressure.
Yep.
It's going to blow up. Right? So we came and we built training curriculum and certifications for R410A. And then kind of the same way with the low GWP, the A2Ls, and even our A3 stuff. So as new things come to the industry, we just try to make sure we've got new content, at least the core content. You know, this is what this is. This is really what you're looking at. And then once you get a good grasp for that, let's hand you over to like the equipment manufacturers or the refrigerant manufacturers to continue that education. So we really stay focused on those core fundamentals that you need to be a technician.
Yeah, so when it comes to what ESCO is responsible for, would you say that they're more involved with helping educators as far as formulating curriculum, or is it more of does ESCO actually administer classes direct to technicians?
Yeah, that's actually somewhat in a transition. So typically we have only focused on our post-secondary vocational schools, right? So we work with about 1,100 different schools across the country, and we've got some abroad as well. And that's really been our focus, is on the curriculum and the certifications for students and the training and certifications for instructors and the accreditation of the programs. So we've never really focused on the contractor side, and that has started to shift. Over the last 2 years, particularly at our National HVACR Education Conference, we've had a lot of contractors and distributor trainers coming to learn more. That's actually how I got close to ESCO. Back in 2019, I went to the conference to get more resources, to be a better educator. And so we've had a shift in that. And so in the past, we didn't really do contractor training, but in this last year, we've actually had a lot of calls, particularly for A2L training, for understanding what's happening in the realm of inverter and cold climate heat pump technologies. So we have been doing a lot more distributor training and contractor training, trying to help fill in that blank. As I'm sure you guys all know, that like the demand and the request for training is just multiplying. And so we try to help fill that void, but it's never really been our focus, but it is starting to.
Cool.
That's good, because these are the contractors. I'm glad to see that, because like I said, back in the day, I think it was back in the, I think 15 years ago, 20 years ago, all the kids that came through my classroom have their ESCO EPA cards.
Yep.
They're all from ESCO. We dealt with them back then, but it's good.
Proctor, right. Many of them.
Yeah, you brought up something, right? So I'm a contractor, and I get to my age, our age, you get hurt. You know, me, it doesn't help. I fell off a roof twice. And things start to ache. Yeah. I didn't break anything.
That explains so much, Paul.
I walked away from both of them. Actually, well, not really.
Does it ever?
Anyway, I'm digressing here. But it's one of my fears when I started teaching full time was I don't want to forget anything. I'm going to forget everything I don't do on a daily basis. And you're right. It's always nice to get those resources where I can keep up on things. Because if you don't have ESCO, and I really appreciate what you guys do, because my fear would be that you get a guy who's teaching and then it's a second career. He's doing that for 10, 15, 20 years. He needs to keep up with what's going on. Otherwise, you're going to get a kid graduating from there, or a person graduates with 20-year-old information, 10-year-old information, whatever it is. Yeah. So glad you guys are doing that. Now, you mentioned the show, and forgive me, but that the HVAC Excellence Show out.
Yeah, the National HVACR Education Conference.
Yes. Yeah. No, Juan's been part of that for the last couple of years. He's been there, and that's in March, and we're going to be there again next year. I think we're going to send Juan and Steve out this time to each do. I don't know what the topics are yet, but we'll get that done. But I've also seen you around. I've seen you. I've seen you wearing a gold suit, gold pants, gold jacket, gold hat. I think that was the HRI show.
Yeah, it was.
There's never a dull moment at Ron Clifton. I'll tell you that for sure.
So tell us some of the training.
One of many concepts.
Because I've seen you on YouTube. I've seen you on different things. So tell us some of the different trainings that you offer.
Yeah. So right now, the main things that we focus on is all the different technologies that we're introducing into the industry and the refrigerants. That's been the focus. So like on our weekly show, I always try to bring in a top educator to talk about specific products, specific refrigerants, specific tools, things that are changing. I myself spend most of my time doing low GWP A2L training when we get requests. That's really been the biggest one. And we do a lot of train the trainer. So that's really what I've been focusing on, is trying to prepare trainers for things like low GWP and inverter technology, cold climate heat pumps. Those are really the things that I focus on myself personally. And it's really just a matter of trying to keep the resources readily available for our industry, but in particular with our educators that haven't been out in the field, haven't seen the equipment, right? Hasn't seen the changes firsthand. That's really what I've been focusing on the most.
So for that show you just talked about, for the listeners that maybe don't already watch, what is the name of the show you do every week?
Yeah. Did you know the ESCO HVAC Show? So we've been running for just about 2 years almost now. And so every week we do a different topic. We do hands-on demonstrations. Like a couple weeks ago, we did a hands-on brazing aluminum class. Sometimes I'll broadcast from manufacturers' facilities. So yeah, every week we do a live broadcast. We multi-stream. So we'll go through different social media channels. And then it's available later back on our YouTube channel at ESCO Institute, as well as our online learning network.
Yeah, I was able to actually view one of those live. I think it was the flaring one, and I enjoyed that one a lot. I actually learned a couple of things. And a few of them I've watched after the fact, not live, because it's every Thursday from 4:30 to 5:30 Eastern, if I remember correct, right?
Yep, correct.
All right, good. And it's some good information out there. So listen, if you're a tech, you're in the truck right now, you want to learn something, it's just another place to go and learn about different things about the
Absolutely.
trade and so on. So I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah, one of the things I liked about it in particular is the visual aspect. So I, like Paul, watched the flaring one somewhat recently, and it makes a difference to be able to see some of the things hands-on, and some of the things you guys test on there. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and stay tuned for the Mitsubishi episode coming up soon.
Yeah, we'll be on there.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. After watching it, I'm like, all right, this is going to be great. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do have plans to be on there. We'll keep it at that. We don't want to, give it away, but it'll be a surprise. We'll let everybody know. It'll be, you'll be able to find it.
We want you to bring some turtle soup with you, though.
I might be able to do that. It is the season.
So, Clifton, as far as requirements are concerned, what does it go into being accredited by ESCO? Can you give us a brief overview on that, please?
Absolutely. So we get a lot of requests for the accreditation program. That's really what the heart of the accreditation is to be able to evaluate a program, make sure that they have the content, that they have the educators, make sure that they have the funds, and they have the placement of their students going forward. So we actually start out with a self-evaluation. So in that self-evaluation, you're going to go through as a department, as a school, and you're going to just do an evaluation of each of these different criteria to see where you are, to even see if you're ready to be able to apply, because it's a little bit of a lengthy process. And so once you have went through all that self checklist, and then you'll submit a video of your program and of your instructors, and then you start working directly with our accreditation team. So we have a team of industry professionals that have been past educators, past administrators. Many of those have been program chairs, so they have ran departments. And so they will actually be the team that does the on-site evaluation. So they'll come do evaluations of the program and then work hand in hand to make sure that you're hitting all these different milestones and that your curriculum is meeting the different standards of the industry. And so they help walk through that whole process. So it all begins with that self-study, just a kind of an inward reflection of, seeing how well we're actually doing compared to other schools that are equivalent.
Now, Clifton, are these public or private schools or both?
We have both, and that's even starting to grow. So we actually had our first online-only accreditation. So hvacredu.net is a completely online school, so they have actually completed their accreditation process. And we've had a lot of interest from technical training facilities from our distributors and our equipment manufacturers here recently. So that's another thing that is starting to develop. Because, if we think about it, I look at the Mitsubishi training facilities, and then you look at a vocational school, and when you start looking at the two of them, you go, wait a minute, we are a school. Mm-hmm. We are doing exactly what the industry is looking for. And we're setting these super high expectations of our students because of our own high internal self-reflection. And we're building these programs out. So that's something we've had a lot of requests for in the last year, is for additional training facilities other than our post-secondary vocational to look at accreditation. So that is actually on the rise.
Oh, good. That's good. It's, accreditation, a lot of people, at least when I was in the school, they said, oh, we have to go through this. You do have to go through, because if you don't have standards, then you have nothing to hold you to that. Because
Right.
I get requests all the time, and I don't want to mention names, but certain people, and even before Mitsubishi in the past job I had at the school, well, why can't we do this? We can't do this because the accrediting body won't allow us to. Well, we shouldn't have this. Well, if we have that, then there's nothing. We need somebody to hold that standard for us, a way to say, no, that's not applicable. It's not effective training. That's why we don't do it. So kudos to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had the pleasure recently of talking with Tom Tebby regarding
absolutely.
accreditation and kind of the process. And he kind of laid out that there's some differences as far as a program accreditation versus a personal accreditation. If you just want to be, I forget what the acronym is, CMHE was mentioning a lot. What is that? What's the difference between those two things?
Yeah, so that actually falls on the educator side. So when you get to the point of being an educator and you're going to be teaching a class, right? Like, Juan, if you were to hire me to teach a class for you, how would you know that I actually have the knowledge to teach that class, right?
I wouldn't by just looking at you.
Exactly. So that's where you start with the CSME, Certified Subject Matter Educator. So that is a intense evaluation. It's an assessment, and it is it's a closed book assessment. You have no guiding material. This is an evaluation of, do you know light commercial refrigeration? Do you know electrical? So you have these variety of different certifications. And then once you start completing those, once you start building that arsenal, you can actually move yourself towards a certified master HVACR educator. And so when you do that, you've now taken a battery of assessments plus a capstone. And so that capstone is the educational perspective of it. So if you think about someone who's going through an educational degree, they have to be able to get certified in different areas of curriculum, but then they also have to do a capstone, which is the delivery, right? To be tested on your delivering capability. And so that's what you end up doing. So you take a battery of different certifications, and then you take your capstone, and then after passing those, you actually gain the CMHE, Certified Master HVACR Educator. And a lot of our programs require CMHE certifications for their educators. Some of our larger vocational programs, it's absolutely required, especially if you're going to be a department chair. You don't get to be a department chair until you've acquired your CMHE, showing that you have not only became certified in a particular subject, but 7 different subjects and the delivery of those.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's great because it kind of bridges the gap between, the material, right? You're accrediting the material itself, but also how that gets delivered. And I think those are 2 really important things for us, all of us here. We're all instructors. So it's not just about knowing the material. It's about how does it get absorbed by our contractors and technicians that come in. So to kind of have that multifaceted where you're doing both, you're taking care of both and holding accountability for both is really important, especially for us as educators.
So, Clifton, I got a question for you, and I may put you on the spot here, but the similarity between METUS, Mitsubishi, and ESCO is that we want to train the workforce. And somehow, some way, it may be a little, actually, they're different topics, but we obviously want to train somebody specific to our equipment, and you're helping people train for the industry in general. But given the fact that we have a very huge worker shortage in our trade, not only our trade, but a lot of other trades as well, have you been involved in any of that workforce development projects or programs or meetings or anything like that?
I sit in on a variety of chair and co-chair positions with the Department of Energy looking at ways of upskilling our industry and what that entails. And so I work very closely with transitions that we're doing in the educational side of our Department of Energy, looking at, what does the future workforce look like? What do they need to be trained in? And is the curriculum that they're taking meeting certain expectations, especially when we start talking about high efficiency equipment, when we start talking about, one of the things that the DOE is working on is programs that are certified for energy skilled, which is curriculum that is teaching not just the fundamentals, not just the equipment specific, but how is this benefiting energy efficiency standards and expectations of like homeowners, right? So it's one thing for us to teach a heat pump, but it's another thing to teach about an inverter heat pump and making sure that it's being installed and commissioned properly so that it's delivering those really, really significant energy savings that it can do. Absolutely. And that's the step we're starting to see a lot of push for right now. And that's the beauty of working together, is looking at our curriculums and going, okay, it's really a matter of, if I'm already doing this curriculum and energy skilled would get me to another recognition, what do I need to add to my curriculum to check those extra boxes?
Yeah, I've been involved in a few of those meetings with you, and I'm going to just a shameless plug here. We're actually the first manufacturer. We were recently recognized from the DOE, the Energy Skill.
Yes.
So we actually have that training. You can do it online, virtually online, on demand. You can take it in person. You can do some online, some in person. So go to our website for that information there. But I didn't do that on purpose. I wasn't leading you there, so you would mention.
You
so
should.
I know.
No, you really should.
Paul.
Well, that's the future of what we look at education is and we're
Absolutely.
moving into a new realm of technicians where we're not just installers and service technicians. We are truly at the heart of conserving energy and reducing our carbon footprint. We have the capability of making significant differences to the world. And that is very appealing to Gen Z and particularly Alpha. When they come into the workforce, they want to know that they're making a difference to the world around them. So by spending time in programs that are recognized by the U.S. Department of Energy, so that you're not only learning how to work on this piece of equipment, you're learning what you're doing with this piece of equipment to make a difference in the world. That's a big thing. And I believe that that's where all programs are going to be starting to focus on is, okay, how can I improve my program to be able to meet these expectations so that we can all do better together?
Good.
Absolutely. Now, Clifton, I've had the honor, and it is an honor for me, to facilitate the last 2 years at the HVAC Excellence Conference. Can you speak to that as to its purpose, what draws people into it, and so forth?
Yeah, it has always been that hub of resources for an educator. It's been that place that you go and connect, particularly with our equipment manufacturers and our tool manufacturers. We always like to say you go to AHR to see the new equipment, and you come to the HVAC Excellence Conference to learn how to work on it and teach it. And that's really the goal. So the goal is to be able to get educators, whether you're an educator in a school, an educator in a distributor, a warehouse, whether you're an educator in a OEM training facility like your own, we want to gather those people together so that they can share information, so that they can make those lifelong connections and have those resources to stay up to date with this new equipment. And that's really what we do. And it's in the past, we've always really focused towards the, our vocational schools, but it's grown so much in these last 2 years. I think we had around a 20% growth the year before and somewhere around 16, 18% growth this year. So we have a lot of new, fresh, young educators. We all know there's a lot of people from the industry retiring. And so in place, we're actually getting a lot of new, young educators that are hungry for knowledge. So that's really what the conference is about feeding the hungry in the industry.
Yeah. Now I was
Awesome.
I was talking to Howard Weiss about that last show, and he mentioned, and I forget what percentage it was, and you might know, but he mentioned that there was an increase in the number of contractors attending this show as well, not just educators.
Yeah. Yeah. So this year, looking back, I think it was around a 16% participation. So if you look at, I think we had around 700, well, so that would have been somewhere around 200 people that had registered as contractors or as distributor trainers, which 3 years ago, that probably would have been 3%.
Wow.
Right.
That's interesting.
Very much contributed to our growth.
Wow. That's good. All right, Clifton, let's plug your show. Give us again the show, the YouTube. I know you have a podcast. I've listened to a few of them. I really enjoyed, what was the last one with the Florida, I don't want to say the words that you said it, but the condensate issue and the humid climates. That was a very interesting one. I liked about that. So tell us where people can listen to your podcast, where people can see your live training and so on. So website.
Sure. Yeah. Just if you can go to our website, escogroup.org, and you'll see the listings for the webcast and the podcast as well, so that you can join us live each week. You can also find us on our YouTube channel, which is ESCO Institute HVAC Excellence, and our e-learning site, HVACR Learning Network.
All right. Thank you. I think that's anything else, guys. Did we miss anything?
No, that was pretty good.
Oh, I think we're good. All right, Clifton,
Awesome.
Thank you very much for being on. We look forward to seeing you really soon on a particular Thursday at a particular location, and I really look forward to seeing you next year at the conference too. So thanks for joining us.
I do have one question, Clifton. And, you know, me being from Cuba, we try to find use for everything we have access to. So talking about the snapping turtle, is there any use for the shell?
Not really.
So you can't use it as a bowl or
you can for a while,
anything like that?
Yeah, you can repurpose it for a bowl. So a lot of our Native Americans utilize the turtle shells for serving and as well as digging. Yep. And so if you leave them in the sun, they'll dry out and they'll start breaking apart. But as long as they stay somewhat moistened, especially if you're working the fields and you're working in a clay area, the clay helps coat those shells a little bit. So we still find pieces of turtle shell that were used, by our Native Americans here in Indiana, from hundreds and thousands of years ago.
Wow.
Is it just snapping turtles or any turtle? And if it's just snapping turtles, why just snapping turtles?
Snapping turtles are just the largest species here in Indiana. So we do have some woods turtles that primarily live in the woods and in the plains. But the snapping turtles, they will live in lakes. And, they'll stay submerged for long periods of time.
Oh yeah.
And so they eat a lot of fish. And so they'll grow very significantly. The largest one I ever seen, we had a spare tire to my dad's early 80s Chevy Silverado in the back of the truck. And when we were about 10 or 12 years old, me and my cousin were tasked with sitting on top of the spare tire of one of the snapping turtles they had gotten. And the shell of the turtle was larger than that 16-inch truck tire.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big boy.
Yeah, they get pretty big here.
Could feed a lot of people with that.
You can.
Yeah. When you say you dug for them, it scares me just to think that my hand could be right in front of that head.
So not too many people enjoy that art of hunting.
Yeah, I grew
Not
up
for me, for sure.
I grew up on a lake that had snapping turtles, and I swam as fast as I could anytime I was in the water, just in case. You never know.
You definitely want to grab it by the right end.
Exactly.
Thanks again.
All right.
Great.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Adios.